Recently, the work I've been doing in painting, I've tried to focus on concerns with the medium, basically to try to get a better handle on the medium and its potentials as well as its problems. At this point, it is forever presenting problems. They are a challenge in themselves, and to overcome them is a wonderful feeling. It seems to be, in many ways, a much more tangible experience than one is able to have with photography. There's a certain distancing that happens in photography, in that the technology is quite capable of taking care of itself. With the painting, you begin with nothing and you attempt to create something. And in that process, you encounter many things, which, at least for me, I find fascinating. In this particular painting, which is one of the more recent ones I've worked on, my concerns were in trying to get to more essential aspects of the work or of painting. That is, aspects which are more essential to me, and eliminate certain superfluous aspects which continually arise in painting, generally speaking. So one of the things I find interesting right at the moment is the irony of myself in the position of the painter, talking about my painting, but being seen through the video cam process. Here I am, and once again, the photographic medium is taking over. It's the preeminent video cam presenting a package of the painter, which in turn can be seen on a monitor. It represents me as the artist or the painter, whereas what I'm primarily interested in is trying to represent the painting, which brings me to the idea, perhaps, which is behind why I paint, and that is the idea of attempting to create something apart from myself, which has a voice on its own. The age-old problem of whether or not the painting will speak for itself when you're not around to explain it or defend it or whatever. I'd like to talk about this painting for a little while. It has certain characteristics which are fairly obvious, and you may wonder why. For example, the lack of polychrome, or why the lack of pictorial information. It's relatively minimalist, not in a formal sense, but in a narrative sense. I think for me, at least at this stage of the game, that's quite important, in that one becomes conscious of works which are trying hard to say a lot, and the artists will imbue their paintings with just an overabundance of pictorial information, often confusing the initial messages or readings of that work. That is anything you may choose to put into a piece will signify certain things, certain important issues. In other words, everything you choose to put into a work connects you with the condition of that medium, the history, if you like, places you in a position of responsibility. My notion is that perhaps by reducing the amount of pictorial information, not only in the objects that are portrayed, but in deploying a narrow band of color, tonal values or intensities, and all of those kinds of things, reducing it down to a simple image that a viewer will look at. Hopefully the viewer will be able to get perhaps more of an essential quality from the painting. I've had people describe this particular painting as as emoting feelings of quietness or stillness. That's a particular kind of stasis that, for me, in a sense, reinforces its own objectness. It becomes what it is by virtue or by nature of the fact that it does not attempt to become something that it is not. The reductive quality is sort of parallel to formal minimalism, except that, if you like, you could maybe think of it as narrative minimalism. Basically, it's not a talk about formalism at all. Okay, question has arisen: why the hell frames have been decorating paintings in this community and general area for a while. I find that very interesting because myself, I had been working with integrating frames into the work for about a year. I think of it as a very important area of exploration. The question has arisen today simply because of the absence of frame on this piece. So, to deal with that, I would have to say, to begin with, that frame is absent by virtue of the fact that I'm more interested in painting than anything else. Just as looking at a Courbet wouldn't be complete without a large gold gilt frame, certain pieces do seem to lack something without the frame, and conversely, when someone does decide to put a frame into use with the piece, quite often the wrong decisions are made, and what you end up with is a situation where the frame distracts from the quality of the piece. So basically, it's just a matter of making some type of intelligent decision about that integration of the two objects, in the sense that both of them will be presented to the viewer. Finally, or at least at this point in time, I've decided to forsake my investigation into framing for a while, simply because, in a sense, for me, it was a little bit like putting the cart before the horse. What is primarily important at this stage of the game is the painting itself. I think if I concentrate on the painting for several years and make certain decisions about the directions I want to take in painting, or in photography for that matter, then maybe somewhere down the road I will reincorporate my interest of frames, old and new frames, into my work for presentation purposes.